Welcome back to our last episode of 18th Century Meals of the Day, today featuring dinner.
For this last episode, we've kind of joined forces, both making upper class and lower class dishes, focusing on how one ingredient can be used in both dishes but turn out very differently. Let's get started?
Let's get started.
Finally, we're going to be preparing our 18th century dinner dishes. Some of those lower class dishes could be enjoyed by those who had to work here at Pottsgrove Manor, both the household servants and the enslaved people who were here. We also have dishes that are going to be set for the Potts's table as well. Wonderful for entertaining and, again, our favorite thing, showing off. But first, we're going to need to go and get some of our ingredients, so a visit to the garden is in store.
For many families in the 18th century, the kitchen garden here would be a big source of freshness coming into the house each day. Our fish receipt today is calling for some thyme and fresh herbs that's going to be put into the fish. In this case, I've come out and picked some dill from our kitchen garden, as well as that thyme that's going to be required. So our fish has been caught and it's been filleted, and we've gone ahead and laid it down on the plank here. You can see our 2 fillets. We're going to go ahead and just season it with a little bit of salt and pepper. On each fillet. And then lay an equal amount of the thyme and dill across those fillets. Next up, we'll tie it to the plank and get it set by the fire.
Our first recipe for lower class food includes a carrot soup. What really is kind of special about this carrot soup, it's very smart. So they may not have meat to put in this soup, but they're using stock to flavor it, so it still gets that depth of flavor and body. This recipe comes to us from a handwritten cookbook from the 1770s from England. It's a new favorite resource. It really does feel like a meal and a soup that people actually made and enjoyed. There's a little note at the very end about what goes through a sieve and what doesn't. So without further ado, all you need is to get your stock and grate the best red carrots in it.
Our recipe says that carrots are the only thing that you have to grate, so once you've grated your carrots, you're free to go ahead and chop a stick of celery and also finely dice a white onion. Once you have all your ingredients prepared, pour everything, carrots, onion, and celery, into stock and add cream to desired consistency.
Before setting your carrot soup on the fire, make sure you season it well. We've done mace and cloves and salt, really classic 18th century spices. One of the most direct ways that you can kind of compare and contrast upper class and lower class dishes is just how they use the same ingredients. So for our upper class ingredients of French beans or green beans today, you are going to see that we're going to make a ragu of them. They're going to be fresh, they're going to be vibrant, it's going to be really tasty. But for our lower class dish, we're going to utilize green beans that were probably from last year in a pickle. So let's show you how to make those 18th century pickles.
Our receipt comes from Eliza Smith, and her first step includes making a brine of salt and water and soaking your green beans in it for 14 days. Once you've done that, rinse them in cold water.
Once we have our green beans rinsed from their brine, we're going to put them in cold water without salt. And Eliza Smith is very specific about the no salt. Then we're going to put it over the fire and boil them till they are tender.
Once you take your green beans off the fire, leave them alone to cool. But this gives you time to put together white wine vinegar, sliced ginger, nutmeg, mace, cloves, and whole peppercorns. Heat that to a boil. Once your green beans are cool, place them in your jar, and then once your vinegar is ready, pour it over your green beans. If making this today, make sure to follow safe pickling protocols to make sure your modern pickles are tasty and safe to eat. But it's time to go ahead and serve up our carrot soup along with our green beans.
During our lunch video last week, we explored 18th century working class and lower class beverages with a focus on beer. This week, we're focusing on another, cider. Cider is in the 1771 Encyclopedia Britannica, and in that, it lays out the directions as well as what you can also add to cider, things like ginger and currant. 18th century cider is a little different than the hard cider you can get at the store today. It tended to be a little bit drier. It had different spices added into it. Still, if you're able to get your hands on an 18th century cider recipe, it is very delicious, and we hope you enjoy it.
For our upper class main dish, we are gonna do veal à la bourgeoise, a recipe from the famous Hannah glass. Now, really, veal and especially venison are very upper class meats. For venison, it shows that you do have the luxury of hunting, doing that in your recreational time, that you do have recreational time. But for our veal dish, we are going to get slices of veal and cook them in bacon fat with lots of spices. It's gonna be amazing. And to top it all off, we'll garnish it with a lemon. Wonderful dish for the Potts' table. We now have our veal, and it's time to give them some spice rub. So we're gonna use parsley, salt and pepper, and then we're gonna use, again, some classic 18th century spices. Ground nutmeg, mace, and ground cloves. So we're gonna turn this into a rub, season both sides, and put it in the pan with our bacon.
First, lay down a bed of bacon at the bottom of your bake kettle before placing your seasoned veal on top and closing your bake kettle.
Our recipe says we're first gonna put our pot over a slow fire, and then after about 10 minutes, we'll crank up that heat.
Once your veal has been in the pot for about 10 minutes and your bacon is starting to sizzle, it's now time to increase the heat and put it over the hot fire to brown the veal on both sides before adding broth and some flour to create a sauce. Once your veal is ready and everything has been stewed together, it's time to remove the bacon before adding an egg and even more broth to create a sauce. Add your beaten egg and stir together to create a wonderful, thick, luxurious sauce. In our original instructions, Hannah Glass tells us to garnish with a lemon. But here at Pottsgrove Manor, there's something we can go and get special for this dish, but we're going to need to make a trip to the garden for its garnish.
A bright sunny day certainly makes the garden a special place. And here, beyond getting ingredients that we're going to need for our food, we're also going to need some things to garnish our dishes with for the Potts' table. And here we already have a couple buds of nasturtiums. Now, nasturtiums will be used today in a lot of foods, especially salads, but they make a very pretty garnish, and they will be perfect for our Potts dishes. So we'll spend some time harvesting here in the garden, both the ingredients that we'll need and the things that make them special.
The fish receipt that we're going to prepare for the Potts family upper class meal this evening is a very simple fried fish receipt. This recipe comes out of a recipe book that's currently stored at the University of Pennsylvania and dates to sometime in the early 1770s. What's really going to set apart lower class and working class fish, where they're getting it local out of the more fresh water, John Potts had 2 shares in fisheries off the coast of Delaware. We see that by looking at his probate inventory done in October of 1768. So we're going to be using saltwater fish to fry up today. The receipt itself is very simple and it's so easy to make at home. I have 2 fillets of flounder in this case. I have 1 egg that's been beaten and just stale bread that's been broken into crumbs. Behind me on the fire is our pan that has hog's fat added into it. That pan is nice and hot, and let's go ahead and drop our fillets.
For our upper class green bean recipe, we're going to be following a recipe from a new favorite source of mine, the cookbook of Judith Bedingfield. She's an English woman writing this cookbook between 1730 and 1744, and her recipes are just great. So she has a ragu of green beans. So all you need, once you have your green beans all fresh and trimmed, you need to blanch them quickly. So,
as your green beans boil, to a pan of hot butter, add an onion, green onion, and parsley. Then add a little bit of flour so it makes a bit of a thicker sauce. Then add your softened green beans and stir together. Finally, to make your sauce, take 1 egg yolk and mix in mace and pour it over your green bean onion mixture. Give it a quick stir so everything comes together before plating.
The beverage that the Potts family will be consuming with their dinner this evening is a typical 18th century rum punch. There are many different receipts out there for rum punch, and the one that we're focused on tonight would be for the wealthier classes. Punches were consumed by the different classes throughout the 18th century, but this receipt will have things like citrus, in our case limes, as well as white refined sugar that's going to be added in. Punches in the 18th century were much different than a punch you might consume today. In the 18th century, they were packed with multiple different styles of alcohol. The foundation for our punch is rum, in this case 1 quart of rum. To that, we're going to add 2 pints of cognac. We've taken the juice of 3 limes, using our juicer, and another 3 limes have already been cut and are being added in slices to the punch. Next up is half a pound of our white refined sugar. And then last but not least, you can add in a flavored brandy at the end. In this case, the recipe is calling for a half a cup of peach flavored brandy. We're gonna go ahead and give that a stir. Bring it all together. And then add in 1 quart of chilled water into your punch bowl.
Thank you so much for watching our Meal of the Day series. We've really enjoyed making these dishes for you. So thank you again. I'm Ann Shipley, the museum educator here.
My name's Neil Hobbins. I'm the historic site supervisor here, and we look forward to welcoming everybody back to Pottsgrove Manor real soon.